Hi everyone, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here, back with a bit of Sunday lunch. Another Sunday, another hot Sunday in the UK, amazingly. I think summer's lasted at least 3 weeks, which is outstanding for the UK. We're up to 30 degrees today. I went out about 10 o'clock this morning and it was already 25 degrees. So got the trusty fan here blasting me with air. But so we need to crack on. Let's get through this. So get out, enjoy some sunshine before the inevitable rains descend back here in the UK. Hope you're having a fabulous week. And yeah, so obviously we've had some of the shows that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, getting ready to launch. I think most of them I was probably on the fence with. And yeah, not gone so great. But you know, names in the frame, are we surprised? Secret Invasion, their strapline, who do you trust? Was certainly not Disney to make a good TV show, that's for sure. I was really looking forward to this. I know, I'm an idiot, complete idiot. It's from Disney. You know they're going to manage to it up somehow. As I discussed previously, you know, R&B, Robert Meyer Burnett said he read the original scripts and he did stress the original scripts and it was pretty good. Then he sort of tweeted out, you know, I've watched the first however many 5 minutes and there's not a single word on screen that I read, which he just knew wasn't going to bode well. There's just so much potential in this story. You know, we've kind of had a bit of sort of spy espionage and how well they did it with Winter Soldier and Civil War to a degree. So we know it absolutely works in this genre. But you can always rely on Disney, Marvel to completely miss the point and get it wrong. So, you know, Nick Fury's back. He's been off-world with Saber. Him and Captain Marvel were supposed to be finding the scrolls in New Home. They just didn't for whatever reason. Like they just forgot, or you know, other stuff. We don't know because they don't bother explaining. Because hey, it's Disney. Nick's come back, and we very quickly get told in multiple, you know, scenes by women, obviously, telling him how broken he is and how past he is, and you know, he's just give up and die, basically. You know, just curl back into your corner. You never got over the blip. Jog on, old man. So yet another Disney trope that we've seen with Luke, Han Solo. We're about to see in Dial of Destiny. Let's take a hero and make him broken down and useless and have all the women, you know, having to carry him through and, you know, take over from him. It's the same old tropes. And it wasn't, I mean, I've seen a few people saying like, She-Hulk, hold my beer. It's not that bad. I don't think anything will be as bad. Oh, the Acolyte will be as bad as She-Hulk. I mean, it was just for me. It's more in the Andor kind of. Andor was better, but I'm saying Andor because this is just boring. You know, you got some cringe dialogue. Say with them saying to Fury, you know, you shouldn't have bothered coming back, old man. You're just a waste of space. You know, ever since, I mean, in the comics, I believe, as I say, I'm not a comic person. I think in some of the comics, Nick Fury was white, but also in the comics, I believe there's a black version of Nick Fury. But obviously, we've only ever known Samuel, who was just an awesome, what you know, wasn't even brought into question that he was black. It's pointed out every 5 minutes in this episode. Fine if it adds to the story, fine if it's, you know, a plot point. I don't have any issues with that, and storytelling of that nature, but it just seems to be there for the sake of being there. I don't know. Apparently it's even worse in episode 2. Obviously we've not seen that yet, but we'll see. So yeah, there's just lots of like, as ever, from what I've heard, it's been reshot to death. So again, the flow of the program isn't quite right, and the editing, and it's quite jarring. And obviously they were sort of telling one story, and now it's switched to another story and switches back again. So I think that's part of the pacing issues. I think they're not really sure, what story they're trying to tell. So we know the Skrulls, right? They haven't got them a planet yet. So what they're just deciding to take over this planet, and we'll irradiate this planet because radiation doesn't bother us, and they're living in like Chernobyl or something. Right, fine. But there's no, have they tried to negotiate? Have they tried dealing or getting hold of Fury? Have they tried speaking to S.H.I.E.L.D. or Saber or whoever to say, hey, what's going on? No, it's just that sort of modern attitude of, I can't get my own way, so I'm going to throw my toys out, and you should all like do what I want you to do attitude. Same as what we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, we had all this free stuff, and we had a great life with a blip, and now everybody's back, life's crap, and we want our free stuff back. It's like, what? It's the same kind of attitude. That doesn't. Maybe it will come out over the episodes that they have been trying and fighting and trying to get, hasn't worked, and this is what they've been pushed into. I doubt it, because that takes a bit of intelligence in writing. But yeah, this just seems a bit lost. It's the same old thing. So male hero comes back, broken down, rubbish. All the women are better than him. You've got at the start this guy who's been following and realizes that the Skrulls are taking over in positions. Absolutely paranoid, but didn't think to check that Martin Freeman wasn't a Skrull beforehand. I mean, that just makes no sense. This guy's sort of been uber careful. He's managed to find out all this information and then just spills his guts to the first person he comes across, knowing that the Skrulls infiltrated. It's just nonsense. As always, it's dumbed down. It's catering to the lowest possible denominator of people who can't, follow a plot for 20 minutes. Whatever. Absolutely gutted, really. I mean, I'm not massively massively shocked that this has happened. I was, I said I'm being ridiculously optimistic here that we might get a good show, that would Samuel turn up and make a crap show. I think he's just turned up for the paycheck. It helps him probably complete his contract and he can bail. I'd probably make it too. So yeah, very disappointing. There's only 6 episodes. The story's literally gone nowhere. As I said, the second episode is supposed to be even worse and just as boring. So you got 4 episodes to tell this story in. So unless it cranks it up to 11, this is going to be another plodding, cringe, bad writing. I mean, there's not really any CGI other than the Skrulls shape-shifting, but hey, if you can't do that in this day and age, I mean, that's basic B CGI. So yeah, I don't know whether I'm going to stick with it. I'm dreading episode 2 from what I've heard. I'm like, do I really want to put myself through that? We'll see, because I do like to make up my own mind, but very, very disappointing. And, talking of disappointment and Disney in the same breath, who'd have thought it? There's all kinds of rumors flying around. It's every week that I do one of these shows is like another week. It's another round of Disney misery, which is good. So in terms of box office, Indiana Jones is tracking poorly, tracking a 60 million opening weekend, which is absolutely dire. When you look at historically, obviously what the franchise had made, and when you adjust it for inflation and things like that, even the Crystal Skull was made over $1 billion. This thing, if it's only tracking 60 million, you're lucky it was going to make half. I guess. I mean, unless it comes out and everything we've heard is wrong, which I find hard to believe. Even when you've got the mainstream media saying Phoebe Waller-Bridge is insufferable, it's bad. I think the only way that if she's not as bad as what we all thought, then I think that actually proves she's got more acting talent than any of the sport, because I don't think she's capable of playing anything other than insufferable, quite frankly, because that's just her personality. So hey ho. So yeah, bad news, bad for Dial of Destiny. We will know soon. It's coming out shortly, but unless word of mouth is any better from the general public, this thing is going to die a very painful death and will be on Disney Plus within weeks. Elemental debacle opens the record worst. Nobody's even talking about Elemental. I've not seen it advertised anywhere. Are there any posters for this? I think it's another, they knew it was going to bomb, so just stick it out. Let's not spend that much money on marketing it. Just stick it out, get it out of the way. Let's take the hit. Let's take the flack. It always feels like they're trying to get through this slate as quickly as possible just to get these movies out of the way, quite frankly. Yeah, what else can you say? I mean, the animations coming out of Disney Animation and Pixar, every single one has flopped this year. That's Strange World and Lightyear, mainly because of the level of the message or agenda that's in those films, given their family films. I personally don't have an issue with, if there's gay parents, like two mums or two dads. I think that does reflect the world that we live in, but it's how you convey that message and how it's presented. I don't think because there's kids out there that is their home life, that is normal for them. So I don't think it should be portrayed as this is not normal, but there are ways and means that these things should be conveyed, and it's absolutely down to the parent whether they want to explain that to their children, and when they explain that to their children, and how old the children are. So yeah, I think it's more about the ham-fisted way that all this messaging is coming across, as opposed to people violently, homophobic or whatever. But it's a difficult one. And I think, like I've said on this channel multiple times, it's the sheer volume of this messaging. If there's a film that's made and it's aimed at that market, and you get gay parents taking their kids, great, why not? But the fact is in absolutely everything. So as parents, you can't navigate anything to say, I don't want to take my child to this, I want to take them to that, because that's clearly not made for us. It's just an absolute saturation that all of that's being taken out of the parents' hands, which I don't agree with. It is completely up to the parents as and when they expose their kids to things like this. And kids are just exposed way too young to sex and sexuality these days. But that, unfortunately, that is the world we're currently living in. And but these box offices show there's a pushback to that, and it's good. Kids should be allowed to be kids. I think back, growing up in the 80s, and we watch 80s films, and you just look how naive we all were, and it's fantastic. And that's why those films are so much fun. So it's just kids having fun in films. That is all it is, And we could do with a lot more of those kind of films for these generations coming through. Anywho, and then the top one, which I absolutely love, is this rumor that Leslie Headland, former assistant to Harvey Weinstein, so of course she knew nothing as his personal assistant, absolutely nothing. Rumored to have been fired from the Acolyte and soft shelled, or soft cancelled as they call it. Let's hope this is true, because it sounds like an absolute abomination. If it is true, we'll probably find out tomorrow, I reckon. This kind of news, as we've seen over the last few weeks, is always Sunday evening or early hours Sunday morning, middle of the night. And obviously, we've just seen a procession over the last few weeks of Disney execs being shown the door. And I think, you know, the writers' strike and the upcoming actors' strike, because the actors are having to get involved because nobody gives a flying doodah that these terrible, terrible writers are on strike. Everybody's like, great, we're not going to have to suffer through any more of their writing because it's so crap. You know, we'll probably open the door for these studios to cull, just basically cull these terrible, terrible writers. And in fairness, actually, that's a bit harsh. Not because what we saw with Picard season 3 is that some of the writers, maybe if not all the writers, had worked on the previous Picard shows or Discovery. But it shows with a really good, really strong, capable showrunner that actually they were capable of writing good stuff without all these blooming mandates and trying to get ideology and everything. It did actually show that they are actually they are good writers as well. So I think, you know, it's a bit harsh to say they're all rubbish, because actually it did show that some of these guys actually have talent when they're allowed to write, or write with a really strong showrunner with a clear vision of this is what it needs to be. I think it just shows that, you know, Hollywood needs to get back to having these good, strong, capable showrunners that know how to make TV, especially Disney. They haven't got a clue when it comes to making TV. Every single Marvel show has bombed. Pretty much every single Star Wars show has bombed, other than seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian. But look what happened with season 3, when, if rumors are true, that pretty much Favreau's been pushed out and he just didn't give a crap anymore. Kind of gone, fine, do what you like with it. See what happens. So yeah, so at the moment, say it's very much a rumor. It's Cameron Pasha and Doomcock through separate sources have been told this. Now, obviously, they could be being set up. Misinformation, who knows? But it would be the first, well, one of the first intelligent things that Disney Star Wars has done, if they've been off this talentless woman who, why is it in Hollywood, if you're a personal assistant, which basically is a secretary, right? And I work with lots of personal assistants, and they're all amazing ladies and gentlemen, and they're very, very capable at what they do, and boy, can they organize the crap out of stuff. Doesn't mean that any one of them could actually be a creative or go to Hollywood and suddenly start writing and making shows. Why does being a PA suddenly make you a talented writer? I have no idea. Or in Kathleen Kennedy's case, sitting in the same room as talented people doesn't make you talented, strangely enough. So I don't know. I don't know what how that works in Hollywood, but if you're osmosis or something, you're supposed to absorb other people's talent. You know, part of my job is organization, and I'm very successful at what I do. I wouldn't think for a second I could go in and run a Star Wars show, but I probably couldn't do any worse. So, you know, yeah. So, talking of flops, wow, we didn't see this one coming, did we? Holy hell. The Flash, again, mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people absolutely hated it. Most people were quite, you know, the Batman stuff's good, Ezra Miller stuff not so good. And I think, you know, people are trying to really saying it's superhero fatigue. I think I really don't agree with that. You know, when we're seeing good superhero stuff come out, I mean, people turned out for Guardians, maybe not as much as they thought, but you know, it's in the 800 millions now. And obviously Spider-Man and Spider-Verse, people are turning out for that. What they're not turning out for is crap. People are fed up of this rubbish being preached at. And, you know, there was a massive backlash to Ezra Miller and people saying, look, if you keep him in this film, I'm not going to go. And as usual, the studios know better. They know better than their paying customers. And they're like, yeah, they'll turn up. Don't worry. And people aren't. And I think people are really voting with their feet on this one. I'm very much like, yeah, I was on the fence about going to see it. I was going to see what the reviews were like. I haven't been because the reviews just, I don't think, are good enough to warrant wasting my money. And I was very much, I don't really want to be supporting Ezra Miller. I've already said I am not going to go see Aquaman because the turd's in it. I said that a year ago, 2 years ago, however long it's been floating around, since the trial and whatnot. Plus it sounds like an awful film, and I really enjoyed Aquaman. And I'm sorry, not sorry. So I think it's good. It's good that people are voting with their feet and their wallets, more importantly, saying, we don't want to be seeing. And the fact that, before this is even released, you had the director saying, I won't make another Flash film without Ezra Miller being in it. Well, dude, I don't think, A, you're going to get to make another Flash film because this ain't doing so well. And B, I think it's very clear that people do not want to see Ezra Miller in this role. And quite frankly, as part of the Justice League, whether that's Zack Snyder's version or Joss's version, he was the weakest thing in it. He was awful. He's a rubbish Barry Allen. I think he's got his niche in his indie films. He should stick to those, but he is not a leading man. And the guy just needs to be getting mentally well. He just needs to be as far away from women and young girls as possible. So so box office drop of 70%. I think this week it's coming in fourth behind, I think Spider-Verse is still number one, but it's even coming in after Elemental, which is obviously crashing and burning. It's quite bonkers that this thing is, and if I know James Gunn, he's head of DC, he's got to say it's a good film, right? But if he's saying this is the best thing DC's ever done, that does not bode well for his slate and his movies coming up, because that shows his judgment is whack. So who knows? I think, was it Blue Beetle next from DC, which he's saying is the first official part of the new DCU. I think, again, people are a bit on the fence with that, after you get a trailer calling Batman a fascist. I was like, hey, look, I see it in context, whatever. What can I say? I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed that Michael Keaton's really been wasted. Obviously, first of all, he was wasted in Batgirl, which has been completely canned, and how he's been wasted in The Flash. If they just made a Batman film, maybe with him and Ben Affleck, I think they would have been onto a money winner. But hey, it was good to hear, actually, though, that Supergirl actually was portrayed quite well. She's not a girl boss, and the actress has done a really good job, and they're sort of saying, she should sort of pop up in the future DC. So that's one positive, I guess, we can take from it. But we shall see. I mean, from other like Guardians and things that Gunn's written, he does write women characters well, and then let's say they're not all completely insufferable. So we shall see. Okay, so some reviews. So a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about upcoming things coming out, and one of those was the Ark, which is on Sky and Now TV here in the UK. It's already shown in the States, as you can see from that poster on Sci-Fi/Peacock. It's from Dean Devlin and Jonathan Glassner. You will know those names if you're a Stargate fan. And Independence Day. I was a huge Stargate fan. I love the film. I like the series. The only one I wasn't that into was Stargate Universe. I just couldn't get into that. I just found it boring. But SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis, I was a big fan of. obviously where Jason Momoa started out, Stargate Atlantis, and he looks so small in it now. Anyway, I digress. So the arc, I'm up to, I think it's 10 episodes. I'm up to about episode 7, I think, 6 or 7. It's okay. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's the greatest bit of TV I've ever watched, but it is actually watchable, which is unusual. We've got this premise that there's some sort of catastrophes happening on Earth, some sort of environmental. It's not 100% clear whether it's natural or man-made. It's not massively leaning into the climate change problem or what's being discussed now. It's set much further into the future. And there's these arcs that have been created to obviously travel out into space, set up colonies, and then people can leave Earth and basically start again. Episode 1 starts with arc 1, and there's an event that happens, and they're obviously, the crew's all in stasis at the moment, and they are woken up out of stasis as this event happens. And a large percentage of the crew is killed, and most importantly, any of the captain, first officers, anybody in command was basically taken out by this event. And then obviously there's investigation into what this event is, how did it happen, and each week really is a series of problems that the crew has to solve. So they have immediate problems of food and water, because obviously they're not supposed to have woken up this soon. So how do they go about doing that? There's also there's a murder on board, and we find out somebody on board isn't who they said that they were. And then each week, like I say, there's sort of a bit of a different catastrophe, or they're learning more. We're learning more about the crew. So it's quite well written. The leading woman in it is okay. She's not really a girl boss per se. She does have flaws, and she's quite good at everything. But she is a flawed character. But they do go on, so I won't because of spoilers. But they do explain why she can do certain things, or why she is how she is. So it's not like a Mary Sue that she's just great at everything, because there's an actual reason behind why she's better at certain things. So I'm actually kind of comfortable with how that's kind of playing out. There's quite a good relationship between her and the first of, well, they are quite at odds. Initially, he thinks he should be in charge. But basically, when it's all going to hell, she kind of like steps up and organizes people, helps get stuff done, and they gradually form this crew, a new leadership crew, and he becomes her number one. There's a bit of a butt heads, but they're actually got quite a realistic and a quite good relationship evolving as they find out more about each other. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying it. I mean, so it's 10 episodes. I think it has been renewed for season 2. What I would say though is that the story does need to progress, and if you're going into season 2, it needs to be more than every week there's a crisis on the ship that they have to solve. It completely makes sense right now why that's happening, and it's quite engaging. And again, this kind of positivity around people being the best of themselves and rising to the challenge and working as a team, which was something Dean Devlin talked about. That's what he loved about Star Trek, was always like every problem was solved by everybody, not just one person. Obviously not counting modern Star Trek, because they don't understand that at all. So I am saying I'm quite enjoying it. I'm not burning through it. It's not the best bit of TV I've ever seen, but actually, it's okay. It's like quite good, of an evening, just have my dinner, stick one of these on, quite enjoyable. So we'll see where it goes. But like I said, they do need to. I don't know obviously how it's going to end. I mean, maybe the episode 10 will set it up for the storyline to kick in a different direction. Because there's lots of secrets and things on this show. They found another arc, and there's like, well, how did they get ahead of us, kind of thing. And There's people on board that they didn't know was on board in stasis and things like that. So I think as long as they can sort of push the story forward going into season 2 and kind of kick it up a gear, this could actually evolve into quite a good show. I think it's really positive it's been renewed for season 2 because, as we say, they don't really tend to give shows a chance to evolve and grow. But there's quite good foundations coming in season 1. And like I say, most of the characters are quite flawed. They're all hiding stuff. There's one girl who's incredibly shallow. She's kind of like this future influencer kind of person. So yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. A lot better than most of what we've got on TV right now. So I say check it out. See what you think. Let me know in the comments. Extraction 2. Everybody's talking about this. I have to say I wasn't a massive fan of Extraction 1. Sorry. I'm a big Chris Hemsworth fan. I think he's a great guy. You know, he knows his bubble, his space that he worked in. I mean, I remember watching him in Home and Away, Australian soap that we have over here in the UK. 20 years ago, probably. He was not as ripped as he is now, but he was always a good-looking guy. And he just seems to be a really genuine, lovely guy in real life as well. That's also why I like him. I mean, obviously, he's very nice on the eye, but he seems to be a really genuine, good family man. And he's starting to push back as well with this sort of Marvel nonsense, saying, hey, look, I still love Thor. I play Thor, but I'm not playing that version of Thor that you just made me out to be a complete joke. So, good for him. So, Extraction 2. So, like I said, I mean, I did... The problem I had with Extraction 1 for me was just the pacing. I just felt it was a little bit long. It wasn't quite moving at the pace, and I was a little bit in the middle. You know, why do I care about this kid? You know, his dad's in prison. It's a very corrupt place, and you've got, you know, criminals running it. You know, whatever. So I didn't massively dislike the first one. I was just probably a bit disappointed it wasn't as good as I was hoping it was going to be. So I was a bit apprehensive going into Extraction 2, and I just didn't need to be. I think the things I didn't like in Extraction 1, they absolutely sorted in Extraction 2. For me, the pacing was great. It was kicked up to another level, but not so ridiculously that you're just like, what? Like a Jason Statham film. Wasn't that? I mean, obviously there is still, you have to suspend belief, you know, like the amount of times you know, like especially Extraction 1, the amount of times he got shot and stabbed and blown up and still going. And there's a little bit of this too, you know, they're being blown up and flung around and tossed through windows. But hey, that's what you want from your action heroes, right? They're action heroes because they're not us. So you kind of get move the story forward in terms of knowing more about him. We know that he lost his son in the first film. There's a little bit more development around that and his ex-wife. So in this is like his ex-wife's sister is in trouble. She's in a prison with her children because her husband is in prison and he's some sort of drug running, gun running, mafioso, oligarch kind of, I don't know what the term is, Romanian mobster. And he basically says he wants them there to keep them safe, but it's basically just so he can keep tabs on them. Obviously, she's been trying to get out of this marriage for a long time. She realizes that, you know, she's kind of married to a monster. And he's hired, say, by his sister effectively to break her sister and the kids out. So, you know, he goes on this mission, and it does explain, it literally picks up where the first one ends, and kind of, you know, because we saw him fall off a bridge at the end of the first one. So it kind of carries on from that. So we kind of see what happens to him and how it gets to this point. And he goes to break them out, and it kind of goes a bit Pete Tong, and that's really where the action, obviously the plot all just kicks in. I really enjoyed it. As I said, the pacing was so much better in this one. It just kicked it up a little bit, but not to stupid levels. Chris Hemsworth announced there's going to be an Extraction 3, which I'm really looking forward to now. I think, yeah, if it kind of builds on this again, but doesn't go, you know, Fast, Furious, nuts, crazy, break the laws of physics. it should be a great film. So yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to, because I was a bit with Extraction 1, and it's not often a sequel is better than the original. So if you haven't checked it out yet, do go check it out. I think most people probably have. It's been a #1 on Netflix here in the UK since it came out. I think it's the most watched film globally for Netflix at the moment. So yeah, the writing's on the wall for the sort of things that people want to watch Netflix, you know. So check out Extraction 2. Now, we were sort of blindsided with a new series of Black Mirror coming out. It's been a bit mixed bag for Black Mirror. Obviously, it started as a UK show written by Charlie Brooker. He's a bit Marmite comedian here in the UK. He's done a few shows where he's sort of doing a lot of social commentary on things. Quite left wing, as you'd expect. But some of his stuff is very funny. He kind of done this mockumentary around like 2020 when we went to lockdown. That was quite funny. And it was on a channel 4 in the UK, which has always been quite cutting edge. It's always been quite progressive, really, you know, pushes things forward in terms of what you see. You know, it had the first like lesbian kiss and all those kind of things, and Naked Attraction. Well, I'll just leave you that to Google, but so when this show started, the very first episode was a princess is kidnapped and ransomed, and her fingers cut off and sent through the post, and basically the people that kidnap her don't want money. They want the Prime Minister to live stream having intercourse with a pig. I know. You just have to go watch it. It is on Netflix. All the Channel 4 episodes are on Netflix. Now, I must admit, I watched this first episode and it just really was like, no, this show's just wrong. No. Not really my bag. And I stopped watching it. And then lots of my friends said, oh, have you been watching Black Mirror? And I went, oh, no, I watched the first one. And they're like, no, stick with it. Yeah, watch the other episodes. It was really, really good episodes. And I kind of went, then went, and so many people said this to me. I went back and started watching it again. And they were absolutely right. There's some blinding episodes of Black Mirror. All of them, you know, are quite dark. And some of them just really make you go, wow. Now, since it's been picked up by Netflix, it's a lot more Americanized. We tend to have a mix of stories set in the UK and in America. Obviously, a lot of A-listers are now involved. The last couple of seasons have been hit and miss. And I think this very much falls into that bag. I have to say my favorite one was Demon 79, which was a UK-based episode. There were 2 UK-based ones. I think I put a comment on Twitter or Facebook or something saying, you know, the only episode set in the UK was the best one. And somebody went, oh, well, what about Loch Henry? And I went, oh, yeah. I mean, it was so memorable. I didn't even remember that there was 2 British set episodes. And the girl in Loch Henry was really annoying. But Demon 79 was great. It was sort of a la, it was sort of like a Supernatural meets Life on Mars, British version kind of set up. It was really, really good. But yeah, it just seems to have lost that edge that being like, so being edgy now was having Selma Hayek taking a dump in a church. That's not the edgy that Black Mirror used to be. Black Mirror, just the whole point is it's obviously holding up a mirror to civilization, right? And there's a lot of uncomfortable truths in it, and just uncomfortable things about human nature. And that seems to have really kind of gone for more just kind of cheap vulgarity rather than really anything that makes you think. Beyond the Sea was the big hyped one with Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett. again, it was all right, you know, a la kind of the Manson family kind of thing, you know, and Misery Loves Misery. But I don't think it really kind of explains why Josh Hartnett would do that, or for him to have gone through what he'd gone through. Where was kind of I don't know, mission control, or you know, they never really explained where they were in space or why they were out there, and I just don't think they would have kept him out there having gone through what he'd gone through. It didn't really explain or make sense as to why he had to stay there. So it was just a bit like, I was a really happy man, I lost my family, I had a glimpse of what you had, and then I couldn't have it, so I took it away. I mean, that is a sign of human nature, isn't it? You know, like, if I can't have it, you can't have it either. But it just, for me, it wasn't really done in a insightful enough way that you really understood Josh Hartnett's motives to try to, you know, why would he do that? It's just kind of like, that's a bit daft, you know. So yeah, again, and everybody's talking about Joan is awful, which, you know, funny in itself, or premise in itself. But you have apparently like people looking up the terms and conditions on Netflix and people cancelling Netflix in case this could happen. It's like, really? Okay. Yeah, I think disappointing overall. Couple of good ones in there. But I think he really needs to either stop making them, or it just really needs to have a backer that has the balls to let Charlie Brooker write Charlie Brooker, really, not this sanitized version of Charlie Brooker. So yeah, but check it out. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you prefer the Netflix versions of Black Mirror? Am I just being too racist, too British against our American cousins? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Upcoming show. So Hijack. As you can see, Idris Elba. Starting this Wednesday on Apple. So the premise is this guy is like a business negotiator. He deals in like the corporate world. He's on a 7-hour flight from London to, I'm not sure wherever it takes 7 hours to get to, Dubai or somewhere, I know. Completely guessing. And this all happens in real time. So I'm guessing 7 episodes, hour an episode. And as the title conveys, there's a hijack. And like I say, he's a negotiator. So somehow, obviously, he gets involved in this, and this all plays out, say, over the 7 episodes. That's really all we know at this stage. But you know, as you know from this channel, I'm quite a big Apple fan. All of their stuff lands, but they always tend to have 1 or 2 pretty decent shows on. So yeah, I mean, I do like Idris. I mean, obviously, we just recently saw him playing Luther again on Netflix. Again, a little bit dumbed down from the BBC version, but overall, good for people who had potentially never seen Luther before. But I do like Idris. The thing, I mean, obviously, a lot of Idris stuff can be really hit and miss. You know, the roles he picks, but hopefully, I'm optimistic, or I'm more intrigued, I guess, about this one. It's sort of like 24 meets something, I know, because it's all done in real time. So yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes, what kind of character he's playing, because he's not a cop, he's not a special agent or anything like that. He's this business negotiator. So how does this ordinary guy apply his skills in this high pressured environment, and whether it plays out well or not for him, really? We shall see. So yeah, starting this Wednesday, Hijack. We'll be covering it. So tune in next week to see what I thought of the first episode. Now, last one of these was a couple of weeks ago. Going through the shows, which we talked a couple of these, like Ark and Secret Invasion. I said there was one called Count Abdullah coming up on ITV. Said it's either going to be terrible or brilliant. Wow. All I can say is it clearly wasn't made for me. That's all I can say. It's a shame because the acting was actually quite good. The premise was good, but there was just so much in it around. Just kept talking about colonialism. Basically, it's Halloween, and you've got a Asian or Indian, I think she's a nurse or a doctor background, as obviously Abdullah is, and when they're at work over break time, they talk about whether he's going to come to the Halloween party. He's like, he's not sure he can because it's the end of Eid, and his mum will kill him if he doesn't go. And they're sort of leaning into, well, you're not really a good Muslim anyway, you know, why don't you come? And colonialism come up then. I can't even remember how they weaved it into the conversation. So anyway, they go to this Halloween. He manages to goes to the Eid party and then sneaks out and goes to this Halloween party where he's dressed as Count Dracula, and because he loves these films. He loves all the Hammer stuff. And she rips into him saying, you know, how they're all sort of sexist and racist, and they're racist because they never go after Indian people. They wouldn't want Indian people. It's a bit of a leap, but I was like, okay. Given that, you know, they were sort of set in the sort of 1700s in Transylvania, I don't think there was a lot of Asian, Indian, Black people at that time, but hey. So they go to the party. This white guy who's a banker, so you know, double points. Turns up as a red coat. She lays it in. Apparently, she dated him at some point. She tells him she's going for a white guy phase because he's clearly got a crush on her, but she doesn't see him that way. And she lays into him about how racist he is and how can he turn up with a red coat on, and again bangs on about colonialism. Then this guy turns up who's dressed as Frankenstein, who's also a white guy, but she's clearly with him. So this, I don't know what it was trying to say, quite frankly, but it was quite cringe, and it was just like, okay, shame, because some of the acting was good, but it's clearly just not meant for me, and that's fine. You know, it's a shame because I used to love Goodness Gracious Me and Home of the Kumars, and even things like, you know, Desmond's. You know, these things can be set in these cultures, but and still appeal to everybody. That just doesn't seem to be the way we write things anymore, you know. So, but hey, take a look, make up your own mind. Maybe you completely disagree with me. Maybe you think I'm seeing things that aren't there, but I won't be watching episode 2. What I did watch, actually, which I haven't done a slide on, but just was Changing Ends, Alan Carr. So again, Alan Carr, all I can say to any American guys is you probably have to Google it and just watch, like, he's a comedian, talk show host. Now, Alan is gay and not traditional looking, shall we say, and he really leans into this. He's got this really sort of squeaky voice, but I like Alan Carr. I find him very funny. I love when he used to do his chat show, and the movie quiz he does on Sky, I really enjoy. So this is a biopic, I guess. It's a comedy set in the 80s when Alan was 11 years old. He's just started high school. You know, his voice is starting to break, and obviously he's sort of more camp, and he calls it camp, personality and gestures are starting to come out. And I found it really funny, actually. I quite enjoyed it, because it's kind of set in the 80s. And the thing about Alan Carr is that his father was a football manager for Northampton Town. At this point in the 80s, they're like Division 4, so not like Premier League, but obviously his dad's a very blokey bloke, and he's got this son, Alan. and he's desperately trying to get him into football. And I'm kind of seeing this lovely journey that he's going on with his dad, and his dad kind of just sort of, by the end of it's only like 6 episodes, like a lot of UK comedies, but by the sort of end of it, that he's kind of, they're forging kind of this new relationship, and kind of, and his mum's like his biggest, like, you know, champion. You can't say anything against her son, but it's quite, you know, it's quite at point, like, he's got a best friend, Charlie, who lives across the road. He's part of the football team now. Say Alan is getting a bit more campy, and his parents just don't want Charlie to have anything to do with Alan anymore. And it's quite like there's points where, like, Alan's desperately trying to hang out with his best mate, and he's not allowed to talk to him, and kind of see this journey over the course of the show as well, around sort of his friendship with Charlie, and he sort of gets involved in the acting club. And so it's not like hold your sides, laugh a minute, but I just found it really enjoyable. And as I was saying at the start, talking about fun, it is just fun. It's not massively leaning into the fact that he's gay. It's just actually just him discovering himself. And really, at the very last episode, he's in a school play, and something happens. He ends up doing this bit of stand-up that's filmed, and they're watching it back in the class. And then he sort of has this realization where he goes like, "Oh my God, that's my voice," and "Oh my God," I guess, "I'm campus tits." I was like saying, but he hadn't even crossed his mind that that's what he was like, you know. And he's just like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" And it's very, I love the way it was written. I found it just really fun and enjoyable, harking back to some of the 80s stuff as well, and so 80s parenting as well. You know, when parents just very dismissive of things, just like, yeah, just suck it up and get on with it. And it was like, yeah, that was therapy in the 80s. And so I really enjoyed it for that. The kid, I don't know, the kid they picked to play young Alan was really good. A little bit OTT, but I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, say if you Google Alan Carr, not an easy person to play. And kudos to this kid. So yeah, I really hope he gets a season 2. I quite enjoyed it. It was just really harmless bit of fun. So on ITV, go check that out. So that's it for this week. I rattled through it, tried to keep it under an hour, just about there. So I'm trying to keep the Sunday lunches to around like 30 minutes, so a bit more digestible. But as I was away last week, had quite a bit to get in this week. So as always, do like, share and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Are you checking out these shows? Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm talking absolute nonsense? More than likely. But anyway, hopefully I'll be back next week. Again, I've got a bit of a busy weekend, but I will try and squeeze in either a Sunday lunch or a pop chat, depending on how much time I've got. And I've got quite a big day on Saturday, so I might be a little bit worse for wear. We'll see. But anyway, carry on enjoying the sunshine if you're in the UK. Hopefully it'll be around for the rest of the summer, but I won't hold my breath. And have a great week, everyone. You all take care. Bye-bye.